Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first day of 2020 DTM pre-season testing. For starters, we are here at the Assen circuit here in the Netherlands, and it should be quite an interesting day as well. I am the lead commentator for today, not for tomorrow, but for today, JW97, or Joseph Willows, and I'm joined today by a former DTM driver. It is Daniel, or Danny as he likes to be known as. How are you doing?
Hey, man. I'm doing fine, and good evening, everybody.
So, we're here for the start of, well, DTM really, after what was quite an interesting season last season, which saw a championship battle between Daniel Fraser and Victor Obobo, which in the end Daniel Fraser was able to win despite retiring at Monza. We start with a new season, of course. Obviously, Daniel Fraser is not here, but Victor Obobo is still in the series, as is Halil Shahin. We'll get to the driver lineups a little bit later on during the session, but yeah, so you've got me and Danny for today, but tomorrow we'll be having different commentators, Rob and Dennis, I believe it is to be exact. And so you've got us for today, basically, here at Assen. Of course, tomorrow they'll be at the current layout of Hockenheim, so it should be interesting to see how that one goes. Of course, not at Euro Speedway this time for the first time in, I figured, a few years, so for a pre-season test, so should be interesting. So I think we might as well get underway and check the weather out for what's going on here at Assen. And it's going to be a bright day. No chance of rain for this first day of testing, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. So yeah, we're going to get on with it, and then we'll also go through the driver lines. Now, I should point out, because Flo has just notified me and Danny of this, some of the textures, aka some of the DTM skins, are not fully finished yet. By that, some of the names from last season are still going to be there, basically. Not all of them. Some of them have been done, but not all of them. And Flo will not be able to get them done until, I think, at some point during the course of the next week, basically. So they should be done before the first race of the season, which I believe is next week, if Flo can tell is in the Discord chat that we're in. But, yeah, so... Okay, yeah, so Flo's just confirmed, yeah, DTM will be on next week. So hopefully he should have those liveries done by the time the first race of the season gets underway. Yeah, he's going to try, is what he's going to say. So we're now here in the garages, and we'll be getting ready to go, of course. And obviously it's an hour session for both days, like it is in GP2, so no differences there. And all the drivers are on display right now. So while we wait for the first cars to go out on the track, we might as well go through the driver lineup, because some of you might not be familiar, or you didn't check the video that came out about it confirming the lineup, as the first car on the track will be Matteo Catalan. So the driver lineup, we'll start off with the BMW squad then. Starting off with Bmw Team RBM, their lineup will consist of Roman Quarg and Thomas Bennett. Thomas Bennett, of course, being demoted from GP2, spending another season and trying again in DTM this season. Roman Quarg again staying in DTM for another season, still determined to get back into the top class for the first time since 2016. Moving over to BMW Team RMG, their lineup consists of Max Norberg and Daniel Adventure. Daniel Adventure, another one who has dropped down from GP2 and is back in DTM for the first time in I think a few seasons as well. And Max Norberg still in DTM for another season. In fact, remaining at the team which I believe he was at last season when he had Oliver Glazebrook as his teammate. Moving over to BMW Team RMR, their team will consist of Adam Wolf, who was at the I believe the Triple R team. No, he was at RMR last season, so he remains at the team for another season. But he's got a new teammate with Daniel Fraser moving up to the top class. His new teammate will consist of 2018 GP2 champion Davey Suarez. Yep, Davey Suarez is back in the OC fraternity via DTM, and he'll be hoping to see if he can have a good season and maybe try and get into the top class in 2021 after missing out on the basically missing out on the seat for I believe it was 2019. So and then he didn't really get a seat in 2019 at all in any tier, really. Probably just assumed that he'd be in the top class, but clearly he wasn't. So moving on then, we move on to the last BMW team, which is Bmw Team Triple R. That team consists of Gabriel Rico, who moves up from BTCC, and Maxim Tipkov, who moves down from the top class. Obviously he missed out on a drive for 2020 and now finds himself back in DTM and back with the BMW squad, and he'll be hoping to have a good season this season and try and make his way back into the top class for 2021. Moving over then to the Mercedes squad, starting off with Mercedes Amg Motorsport. Now, Julius Anderson remains with the team for another season, still determined to get back into the top class, but he's not the only one in that team who's trying to get back into the top class. His new teammate for this season is two-time world champion Mckenzie, of course. A bit of a Probably strange seeing Jay Mckenzie in the DTM field, given that he's been known for being in the top class pretty much for all of his career, really. But obviously, after missing out on the drive for 2020, after he pretty much handed his notice at Renault, he's now gone over to DTM, and he hopes to be back in the top class in the future. So Jay Mckenzie and Julius Anderson are at the Mercedes AMG Motorsport team. Moving over to Mercedes AMG Motorsport Petronas, they retain their lineup from last season, which is Florian Volker and Will Neller. The pair of them hoping to put the disappointments of last season and hope to have a better year in 2020, especially Florian, who had a lot riding on him last season, and a lot of people expecting a lot from him last season, and they didn't quite deliver. But in his second year at DTM, he hopes to have a better season. Moving over to Mercedes AMG Motorsport Remus, they have a new lineup which consists of Rifki Fakhrizadeh, who moves over from the Audi Squad, and his new teammate for this season will consist of Jared Fosbury, who of course got demoted from the top class. He's currently the Haas test driver, and he'll be looking to try and see if he can get back in the top class for next season. I hope to have a pretty good season. And it's not mine, Flo. I believe it's Danny's. I've got mine on mute. So that's the squad for the Mercedes AMG Motorsport Remus team. Jared Fosbury and Rifki Fakhrizadeh. And then finally, moving over to the Mercedes AMG Motorsport Cyberfield. Their lineup will consist of Matteo Catalan and Lean Campana, two drivers who got demoted from the
fastest lap of the session.
So, two drivers who got demoted from the top class, of course. Matteo Catalan, of course, well, obviously, as we know, his story is basically because he missed out on the top class sign-ups, and he's even been joking about it ever since. So he's spending a season in DTM in the hopes to get back in the top class in the future. Lean Campana is also in the series as well, after he got demoted from the top class after quite a tricky couple of seasons with Williams, and he'll be hoping to revitalise his career. So that's the Mercedes squad done. We now look at the Audi squad. Moving over to Audi then, we now have, starting off with the Audi Sport Team App Sportsline team. They have Will Parrish and Bartosz Klos as the drivers driving for their team. Bartosz Klos, of course, remaining with the team, but with, of course, Rifki Fakhrizadeh moving over to the Mercedes squad. He's got Will Parrish now as his new teammate. Moving over to Audi Sport Team Phoenix, Victor Ibobo, last season's runner-up, moves over to the Audi Sport team again, and his teammate for this season will be Krzysztof Berenek. Berenek, of course, staying in DTM for another season and be hoping to have another good season like he had last season. And finally, moving over to the Audi Sport Team Rosberg team, Halil Shahin remains with the team for another season and hopes to improve on the consistency that he kind of lacked last season, which prevented him from going for a championship in 2019, so to speak. And he's got a new teammate in the form of Mateusz Turwick, who returns to DTM after spending a season in BTCC and finishing runner-up in that series. So Turwick, obviously, with a point to prove as he makes his return to DTM. So that is the lineup for 2020, and apparently Danny's is muted as well, so it might be because of a glitch that's on Discord. I've still got that glitch for some reason on Discord where it's muted, but for some reason it's not muted, so I'm having to lower it as much as I can. I can't really do anything about the issue, unfortunately. I've tried everything, it just will not respond, so I do apologise for that, Flo. It's nothing really much I can do on my end. So, that's that really. So, as you've just seen there, some lap times have been coming in. So far, we've got Max Norberg is at the top of the timing sheets by just under a tenth ahead of Florian Volker, with Thomas Bennett currently rounding out the top three at this point in time. As mentioned, some of the deliveries are not 100% finished yet. This is due to timing issues that Flo has had, but hopefully by the first race, which will be in next week at the current layout of Hockenheim, hopefully they will be sorted out, but Flo's not making any sort of promises because he is quite a busy man. So, yeah, so that's that really. As some improvements are still coming in as we speak, as we look at Maxim Tipkov in the BMW as he makes his way through the right-hander. Here's Gabriel Rico, of course, making his step up from BTCC. Fosbury in the ex-Roberto Gamba car. As here is Lean Campana, moving his way around the corners now. Then, of course, this is the old version of Assen, because there isn't a current version of Assen available on Grand Prix 4. This is the only latest version of Assen that's available on Grand Prix 4. The current version just doesn't exist for some reason. So, that's that really. So, as Catalan makes his way through into the last chicane, he's currently not on an improvement. Currently, Catalan finds himself down in 21st, and he remains in 21st at this point in time as he makes his way down towards the quick right-left chicane before making his way into the very quick right-hander. Hoping to not make too many mistakes if he can, of course. Now, going around these next section of corners now, then we go. Now, whilst everybody's still filtering around trying to get some lap times in, we might as well go through the calendar as well for 2020, and so that's that really. So let's have a look at the calendar then. Of course, we know that the season will start next week at the current layout of Hockenheim. And for some reason, my YouTube streams decided to give up on me there. Got it sorted though. Not an issue on Flo's end, it's just a problem on my end for some reason. Also, hello to everybody in the chat, but I might as well start again with the calendar. In fact, we'll start with the pre-season test. Now, obviously, today we are at Assen, of course, for the first day of pre-season testing. But tomorrow, of course, we'll be heading off to the current layout of Hockenheim. And first time, I think that's been a pre-season test venue, if I'm not mistaken, unless Flo can correct me on that one. But I do believe it's the first time. Oh, okay, I am correct. Flo's just to show me that. But that will be the first time. Of course, it used to be Euro Speedway we used to go to for a few pre-season tests, but not this time around. So should be interesting to see how they go. Obviously, it could be a bit of practice for them for the race next week, of course, because that's also at the current layout of Hockenheim. Speaking of which, here is the season calendar. So as mentioned, the first race will be at the current layout of Hockenheim, which kicks off next weekend, and along with the BTCC pre-season test, which is happening at Donington Park. Look out for that one. Then the next one is a voted track. Now, this track will be in Portugal, of course. Now, it is between, you would have guessed it, the two famous Portuguese tracks, which are Estoril and Portimao. Now, only DTM drivers can vote on that track, so if you haven't voted already and you're currently in the DTM grid, you might want to vote for which Portuguese track you prefer, either Estoril or Portimao. They are the contenders for that second Portuguese race. The third race will take place at Motorland Aragon, my favourite Spanish track, and in my opinion, the track that should be the Spanish Grand Prix in real life, but we move. But, then round 4 of the championship is another voted track, this one being in Italy. This will be the first Italian race, and it's between Misano and Mugello. So the two tracks that host races in MotoGP, they are up for the vote for the fourth race of the season. So again, only DTM drivers can vote, so if you haven't voted yet on any of the round 2 or round 4 votes, then get cracking. For round 2, it's either Portimao or Estoril, and for round 4, it's either Misano or Mugello. So aware of that one. Round 5 will be at the Red Bull Ring in Austria before we then head off to Euro Speedway for round 6. Then we'll be staying in Germany. Round 7 taking place at the Nürburgring before heading off to Silverstone for round 8. It's pushed back from its original spot. Silverstone being pushed back a little bit more, along with Le Castellet in France, of course. Paul Ricard has also been pushed back. Both Silverstone and Paul Ricard are rounds 8 and 9 respectively. Then the last 5 races are basically the same as it has been for the last few seasons. So round 10 will be at Montreal at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada before heading off to COTA in the United States. Then the old layout of Hockenheim, which will play host to round 12. Then the penultimate race, as per usual, will be at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. And then the finale for the season will, as usual, take place at Monza in Italy. So there you go, that is the calendar for 2020. And as mentioned earlier, if you are a DTM driver and you're still yet to vote on the 2 voted tracks, then you've still got a bit of time left, of course. Obviously, each of those races will be revealed at the end of the previous race. So the second race, the Portuguese race, that will be revealed after the race at the current layout of Hockenheim has happened. And then, of course, the fourth race, which is between Misano and Mugello, that will be announced after the race at Aragon. So you have that, as there's some side-by-side action here going on between two BMW drivers, Suarez and I believe, is that Wolf? I think they might be teammates. In fact, they've just been fighting each other there. I believe they are the RMR guys. So now we look back at Matteo Catalan, and to be honest, Danny, as I mentioned earlier, his story here in DTM is a bit of a funny one, really, because he missed out on the top class sign-ups.
Yep.
So all you got to add, is it? Just, yeah.
That's all I got.
Yes, well, obviously for Catalan, of course, he'll be hoping to not make that same mistake this time, but also have to have a good season in DTM if he wants to get back in the top class. He's driving the former Christoph Beranek car, but of course Beranek has moved over to the Audi Squad, so obviously Catalan will be able to do well in the orange Cyberfield Mercedes car. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm not good with German. But we now look at Davey Suarez, of course, the man who is back in the OC fraternity via DTM, of course. Came close to getting a drive in 2019 as he was fighting for the... excuse me. He was fighting for the Renault seat in 2019, but he missed out, of course. And because he didn't sign up for any other tier outside of that, it meant that he didn't get a drive in 2019. But he's back for 2020 with a point to prove. And if he has a good season in DTM and signs up for the top class, who knows? Maybe we could see him in 2021. speaking of Renault, of course, we talk about an ex-Renault driver who just went up to 9th there, Mckenzie, of course. Obviously, we know his career by now, 2-time top-class champion, which brings the total of top-class champions in the DTM series to 3 now, who are currently on the grid, along with Florian Volker and Will Neller. Mckenzie, of course, unlike Florian and Will, though, he's not completely done with the top class, of course. He didn't retire on his own terms, and Jay is obviously determined to get back into the top class in the future, because he still feels, despite winning the 2 World Championships, he's still got a point to prove after what had been, you have to say, Danny, for the last 2 seasons, a very frustrating time at Renault.
Yeah, for sure.
So, that's that. As this is his teammate, of course, though, we're currently looking at, though, Julius Anderson, a man who is still determined to get back into the top class. Probably one of the most unluckiest top drivers you could say in terms of sign-up choices, because the amount of times he went for Renault, of course, it didn't really go well. That's why the meme of Julius to Renault kept creeping up quite a lot at the time. Well, mainly because someone kept predicting, that he would go to Renault, and it never happened. Meantime, speaking of Mckenzie, he goes to the top of the timing sheet.
Fastest, yeah.
By 600 of a second, a 1 minute 36.658. Mckenzie, the 2-time top class champion, goes to the top of the timing sheets. As now the top 3 is Mckenzie, Norberg, and Parrish at the moment. Parrish currently up in 3rd position at this point in time. In fact, 2 former top class champions are currently in the top 4 as we speak, with Volker in 4th position. Neller currently outside the top 10, so if he doesn't want to be the odd one out, he's probably got to pick up the pace a little bit in this session. As we look now at Lean Campana, another top-class demotee, you could say. Of course, he'll be doing test driver duties for Racing Point, and it's a bit ironic that he's in a Mercedes, given how much of a copycat the Racing Point looks. And but he will be, I believe, from what I remember from the testing schedules, he will be in the Racing Point next week at China during the free practice session. So it won't be too long until you see him in a top-class car again, but obviously he wants to try and get back into the top class if he can. Whether he will or not, it remains to be seen. It all depends whether what happens this season. Speaking of former top-class drivers, is Bartosz Klos, another man who's also landed a test seat for 2020 with Ferrari, and I'm trying to remember which track he's actually scheduled to go to. I think I might have accidentally deleted the... No, I haven't. I haven't deleted the screenshot of where Klos is testing. Klos is testing... Oh, also at China, in fact. So oddly enough, Campana and Klos are both going to be doing test driver duties for their respective teams at China next week. Of course, Klos is the Ferrari test driver, as mentioned, so we'll be seeing him in the Scarlet Red next week in China. And as mentioned, we'll be seeing Campana in the pink Mercedes. So it'll be interesting to see how those two do next week. So we now look at Victor Bobo, who makes his way around the quite... I would say it's a short of chicane, but it's not really a chicane, is it? It's kind of a secret. It's kind of a left which has a little bit of a pause before you go into a right-hander, although the complexity of it would make you think it's probably a chicane, but it isn't. But we're now onto the back part of the track now. Then as a Bobo will make his way towards the left-hander, and they're keeping it flat out there. Clearly these DTM cars having a lot of downforce before making his way through the famous last chicane, where if you've watched a lot of MotoGP races, has had quite a lot of famous moments. Specifically, you could say Rossi and Marquez, but also Hayden and Edwards back in 2006. Probably the only time Edwards came close to winning a MotoGP race, and he bottled it. So, oh really? And 2-time champion and a League of Legends addict, according to Ra on the Discord. So, kind of wish you'd stop DMing me, to be honest with you, Ra, because it is getting a bit annoying, but that's up to you. So, it's kind of the definition of spam, to put it that way. Meanwhile, here is Mckenzie. For this season, of course, he's driving the ex-Hoang Minh Nguyen car. And as he makes his way towards the final few corners on the track, currently at the top of the timing sheets by 61 thousandths of a second ahead of Max Norberg, before making his way towards the last chicane, through the right, left, and then through the right-hander, as Klos is currently in 11th position. And now just going through the first few corners on the track. As I mentioned earlier, Klos has gone up into 11th position. As now Mckenzie makes his way towards turn number 3, I believe this is. I mean, obviously, I'm not too familiar with the old version of Assen. Well, I am, but I just don't memorize. I'm not very good with memorizing what the corners are. I'm more used to the current version of Assen, to be quite honest with you, which has cut most of the old part out, so to speak. and rejoins where that hairpin is basically, and even some parts of the of this layout after that hairpin have been modified a little bit. So just an interesting note. Ibobo, meanwhile, last season's runner-up has gone up into 11th. Excuse me, into 11th position, and even while we were doing the sign-up process last season, Evan mentioned there was a little bit of a curse with Victor Ibobo, because anytime he's had a good season in DTM, he never really seems to sign up for the top class. It's a bit of a mysterious curse that seems to happen with Ibobo. Whenever he seems to... I suppose, yeah. I mean, obviously, Ibobo is the only driver on the grid to have competed in every season in DTM, and in every race as well. So, maybe he wants to be a DTM merchant for life, who knows? But that's that, really, as Suarez makes his way through the first few corners on the track. Does Davey Suarez we're looking at now. Of course, the man who is making a return to the OT fraternity after not driving at all last season. And like I said, he's got a point to prove. And of course, he is driving for the team that did win the Drivers' Championship last season. So that could... so maybe he could find his way. Who knows? If he has a good season... I'm struggling to get my words out because... what Flo said there just kind of made me chuckle a little bit in my head. So, kind of lost my train of thought there. Meantime, Julius Anderson has got up into 5th position, getting ahead of Rifki Fakrazone, finding himself 7 thousandths behind Florian Volker at this point in time, as Suarez now then making his way towards the right-hander. As there's kind of like a few, you can see there's obviously quite a lot of lines around this track. There's obviously very clear that with this old version with Assen, there are a lot of alternative layouts. Of course, not available to Grand Prix 4, but clearly just for detail reasons, they are there. Here is Matteo Catalan, who's coming back into the pits this lap. Catalan down in the second to last position, so not the greatest of starts to DTM life for the Italian, and obviously determined not to make the same mistake that he did last season, which was miss out on the sign-ups for the upcoming season. So, of course, if he does come back, it will be when the fantasy era kicks in for the top class as well, and it'll be interesting to see how the fantasy era shapes up, of course. And, of course, there are a few people part of the livery editing department. I'm not going to mention too many names. I think some of them might be a bit obvious to you guys, but I might mention them at a later date, so unless they want to mention them themselves. But anyway, here is Halil Shahin now then. I feel the man who I believe finished 3rd last season in the DTM Championship, and like with Ibobo, he's remained at DTM for another season and was up on his personal best in the first sector we just saw there on the top right of his mini def panel, but on this occasion he seemed to have lost time a bit in the second sector. Shahin at the moment is currently in 8th position at this point in time. As meantime, Anderson, who we're looking at, remains in 5th. No improvement from the Swedish-German driver, as Anderson makes his way towards the right. And in the same car, of course, as he was last season. So no changes on that front there for Julius. Of course, he is the 2016 DTM champion, determined to become only the 2nd driver in DTM history to be a 2-time champion. The only person who has done that was of course Azul Zafri, the ex top class owner, and the man of course who gave birth to the OC. So obviously we owe a lot of thanks to Az for this series, really. As meantime, Tipkov has got into 19th. We're riding on board with Matthias Terwick, who after a season in BTCC and finishing runner-up in that championship after having a brilliant last meeting of the season at the GP layout of Brands Hatch, is back in DTM. Of course, partnering alongside, as we mentioned earlier, Halil Shahin, we were talking about him a little bit earlier, in the Audi Squad, and currently he's up on his personal best. Terwick at the moment is currently in 18th. Where's he going to place after this lap? He actually goes up to 2nd. A very good time from Terwick, in fact. 3 thousandths off of fellow compatriot Jay Mckenzie. So currently it's a 1-2 for the Polish drivers at this point in time. Obviously 3 Polish drivers on the grid in DTM. We've got Jay Mckenzie, Matthias Terwick, and of course Bartosz Kloss as well. If Kloss gets up into 3rd, then it would be a 1-2-3 for the Polish drivers in DTM. But at the moment, it's just a 1-2 at the moment. We look now at Julius Anderson, who's coming up to the back of one of the Audi drivers. And I know that was at one point a Rifki Fakrazone car, but it's not a Rifki Fakrazone car anymore. Because, of course, Rifki Fakrazone has moved over to the Mercedes team. And I'm trying to remember who it is now who's in that car. He's partnering alongside Bartosz Kloss. I do remember. It's Will Parrish, of course. Will Parrish it is who's driving that car, and he's moved over from the Mercedes squad. So you could say, in a way, Parrish and Fakhrizyan have essentially switched places when it comes to the squads they're part of. Parrish, of course, you could say his DTM career has been a little bit shaky, of course, ever since he moved away from Formula E. Never really quite, he's not really had the consistency or even the look in DTM that I think he was expecting. Of course, he's not the only American on the grid this season. He's got Lean Campana also along on the grid, so we have 2 American drivers in DTM. So it'll be very interesting to see who'll be topping the battle of the Americans between Lean and Will. And Parrish at the moment, currently finding himself in 4th position, so far having a good session, but he's currently got Julius Anderson currently behind him, who's in 6th position, and finds himself 0.668 behind Mckenzie in the second sector there, and down on his personal best at this point in time. As we now look at Parrish, who goes through the banked corner there, as maybe look like Anderson might try and maybe want to have a pass on that Parrish very soon, as he's going to try and have a look, in fact, into this left-hander. They're going to go side by side and now into the last chicane, but Parrish is just going to hold on for the moment. Anderson having to back off at the last chicane there, so that won't do Anderson's lap any good at all. And so is that really? As we now look at Maxim Titkov now then, of course, the Manor test driver, of course, ex-Manor driver, I should say as well, having spent the last 2 seasons in the top class, but obviously after a very tricky 2019 season, he's now in DTM for this season and hoping to make his way back into the top class for 2021. Of course, he did finish runner-up in the 2017 GP2 Championship behind the currently retired Ennis Perachki. Whether we'll see Ennis back in the future, we'll have to wait and see, of course, but he will be allowed to sign up, I believe, in the 2021 sign-ups, because the retirement rule would have been lifted on him, basically, because he would have served the time that he'd be allowed to spend minimum on retiring, so to speak. So whether he wants to come back, he is allowed to from 2021. Which series, though, it's really up to him, really. Whether he gets a seat in any of them, that's another question. So that's that, really. Of course, Danny, you're obviously a former DTM driver. Of course, you're competing again in Formula E. I think, obviously, for you, I guess the aim is to try and get back into this series in the future.
Well, to move further, actually, not just get back. Because I just went back and forth between tiers for a while. From BTCST, of course, to DTM and then to FE, so... Didn't have a great time in FE either, so... It is a goal of mine to get back in DTM.
Well, hopefully this season hopefully this season you may have a chance. As we now look at Daniel Adventure, who has been demoted from GP2, finds himself back in DTM. I'm trying to remember the last time that Daniel actually was in DTM. I think it might have been 2017, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2016. I can't 100% remember. It was one of those 2 seasons, but I do remember that Daniel Adventure was in DTM at one point. So, as Adventure now then, he's coming into the pits this lap, but Adventure currently finds himself down in 18th position at this point in time. 6 thousandths behind Davey Suarez at the moment. In the meantime, Catalan and Berenek improve on their laps, but they stay in 16th and 21st respectively at the moment. The whole pack separated by just under a second. Rico, in fact, Gabriel Rico, being 0.999 behind Jay Mckenzie, so only just under a second there, by a thousandth, I should say. And so very lucky on that department. As 16
was the
just
last
got an
time.
answer there. As meantime, Max Norberg has gone back to the top of the timing sheets. He's got back himself, got back in front of Jay Mckenzie in this session by 42 thousandths of a second. So back up into first position goes the 2018 Formula E champion, Max Norberg. And obviously his rival from that season, Aji Prazan, obviously got demoted.
Again, by the way.
Well, whether he can do that though in the second sector, we'll have to wait and see, because I do know that sometimes lap times can get a little bit lost in the middle sector. We'll have to wait and see on that. But Aji Prazan, of course, who was his rival in 2018 in Formula E, has obviously been demoted back down to Formula E with his old team. In fact, because we've got a yellow flag, actually. We've got a yellow flag, our first yellow flag, and it's Halil Shahin. He's had a crash. I don't know if that has to do with the pit entrance or whatever, because I know that has been a thing in testing in the past, or whether that's just a simple error from Halil Shahin, or he's just had a simple crash with someone at the last chicane. We'll have to wait and see. And it does look like it's pit-related, because Anderson was trying to get back into the pits. And, yep, there you go.
It is pit-related.
Yep, and Anderson's going to have to do an entire lap, basically, to get back into the pits. That's not exactly what he had in mind.
Yeah, he got damage.
Yep. And so he's going to have to do an entire lap to get back into the pits. But just like last season, the pit entrance strikes again around this track, and it caught out Halil Shahin and Julius Anderson. So I don't think Shahin's going to be particularly happy about that one. And nor will Anderson, to be honest with you, that the pit entrance was blocked off for him. We run on board with Thomas Bennett, who comes down at the pit straight, and he does not improve. He remains in 8th position at the moment. Currently in the top 10 at the moment is the Welshman, who obviously got demoted from GP2. As here is Matteo Catalan and Christoph Berenet, both of them not able to improve on their laps, as Gabriel Rico remains where he is, as does Will Nelly. He might have got a little bit held up there by Rico, I'm not 100% sure, as Shahin is going to get hoisted over the barriers. Kloss goes up to P11. In the Audi, so not quite into the top 10 just yet. Currently, Adam Wolf is in the cusp of that top 10, and for some reason, there is no yellow flag to indicate that Shahin's car has been cleared away and trying to get hoisted over the barriers. So a bit strange there from Grand Prix 4 that there's no yellow flag at that last chicane, but there we are, really. So here is Julius Anderson, who we believe has got a little bit of damage. He had on the, trying to look on the indicator, that is the front of the car that he's got the damage on. So, but he was coming into the pits anyway. It's just that he's now having to do an extra lap to get himself back in the pits. So that's that, really. As now makes his way through the right-hander, through the banked right-hander. And he's soon coming back as Mckenzie goes back to the top of the timing sheets by 21 thousandths of a second. Mckenzie on a 1:36.595. So Mckenzie, the two-time champion, heading his way back to the top of the timing sheets, and we're hoping to have that pace throughout the entirety of the season. Anderson this time makes his way to the pits, no one blocking the entrance this time by, so he'll be able to not only top up with fuel and also get a fresh set of tyres, but also repair that bit of damage that he got after that collision with Halil Shahin. Shahin, of course, will have to jump into the spare car if he wants to continue for the remainder of the session, and in fact he is back out on the track, as we can see on the indicator, so he has got back out into the spare car, and I believe that's him in front of Bennett right now. So he's got himself, I mean, it was basically just a short run to the pit lane anyway, so he didn't have that much travelling distance to get there. Kloss, meanwhile, improves a little bit more, but remains in 11th, finds himself 6 thousandths now behind Adam Wolf, as we have just over half an hour of this session to go. As Yuri Marta realising that Jay Mckenzie is leading it. Hello, Yuri. By the way, his reaction very, very explicit, so to speak. An F-bomb was basically used in the middle of his name, so that's that, really. So that's that really is Gabriel Rico comes up towards the hairpin. Now this corner in particular, as I've seen a couple of times in testing, I don't know whether it's because of the changeable conditions or drivers just pushing too hard. Usually we do get to see some mistakes at that corner, specifically at the right-hander, and they end up joining back onto the hairpin where they end up crashing. And speaking of Mckenzie, who we were just talking about a little bit earlier, he's gone a little bit quicker, but only by 4 thousandths of a second. He's now on a 1:36.591, so Mckenzie further improving his pace in the Mercedes at the moment, as he now makes his way through the right-hander, and he's now down on his personal best, so maybe the best was on that previous lap, but whether he'll be able to find some more pace a little bit later on in the session, probably we'll have to wait and see, of course. But yeah, so now we ride on board with Lean Campana, or Please Lean, as he was nicknamed a few seasons ago. So that's that. And I wonder if those memes will start creeping in again a little bit later on. So now look at Campana, of course, making his return to DTM, because this was where he actually started his career in the OC back in 2014, I believe. And he had an impressive year that season. In fact, that he actually got the call up to GP2, where he spent a few seasons before making his way, of course, to the top class, spending 2 years at Williams before making a bit of a risky decision with his pickup choices, it must be said. He's with the pick order, really, putting Racing Point as his first choice and then having Williams as his second choice. And given the pick order, could tell that Williams were ahead of Racing Point, and the fact that the Racing Point drivers got announced on the first week that they would be retaining. For Campana, for most of the season, I guess the writing was really on the wall for him in terms of him being on the grid for 2020. And was that really? As he'll be hoping to redeem himself, hopefully, this season in DTM, and hope to get back in the top class in the future. We'll have to wait and see that. We're on board with Halil Shaheen, who's coming up to the back of a couple of cars here, one of them being Thomas Bennett. He's trying to get by, and wasn't able to pass him that time by. Of course, Shaheen now in the spare car after having his crash at this particular corner. We're now coming up to, thanks to the pit entrance, a collision, of course, that he had with Julius Anderson. Shaheen doesn't improve. He remains where he is at this point in time, as now he makes his way through the right hand. You could tell from that lap, just judging from that, how much time he lost from that traffic. He was 2.1 off of Mckenzie overall on that lap, and that so Prix is showing that for the Turkish driver, the traffic is not really helping him out at this point in time, as he finds himself 3 tenths down in the first sector. Currently being held up by Fakhrizane, who's got Bennett and Shaheen, and Bennett is actually coming into the pits this lap, and I hope for his sake that Shaheen doesn't try to do anything rash like he did with Anderson a little bit earlier on, because that would just be a pure example of deja vu. Hopefully that doesn't happen, as they make their way towards the few little kinks that are on the track before making their way towards the right-hander. We'll flap through this left-hander and then into right. As Shaheen is getting very, very close now to the bumper of Thomas Bennett.
I'm getting worried.
So now make their way through those sections of corners. We now look at Campana, who might be coming up to some traffic of his own, which consists of a couple of Audis. So 2 Audis currently holding each other up at this point in time, as they now make their way towards the right-hander, where, as I've said a couple of times, we have seen some mistakes a couple of times during testing when we've been here for the last couple of years, and some quite hefty crashes as well at that corner. So whether we'll see the same later on in the session, we'll have to wait and see. And Anderson coming up to the back of Davey Suarez, who's jolting into the pits there. So luckily for Anderson, no deja vu moment for him there. But I believe that Shaheen might be safe, because I haven't seen any yellow flags indicating anything, and I think they would have already passed that section. So I think Shaheen has got away with it pretty much unscathed this time by. I believe Bennett was able to get to the pits. Anyway,
no
deja
vu there.
Yeah, as in fact Bennett has got the pit symbol, so yeah, no problems there. As we now ride on board with Lean Campana. We have just over 25 minutes to go in this session, and now making his way towards the final few turns on the track. It doesn't look like the American is on an improvement, but we'll wait and see. Through the right, then the left, and then the right. Quag has improved a little bit, as Danny's just said there, to go up to 13th, but Campana does not improve as expected, and he remains in 12th position at this point in time. As he makes his way through the next few corners. He's not coming in this lap, so he's going to be doing another flying lap this time by, with just over 25 minutes to go. So this is what the current leaderboard looks like then. At this point in time, it is Mckenzie at the top, with Norberg in 2nd, Terwick in 3rd, Parrish 4th, Volker 5th, with Anderson in 6th, Fakhrizane in 7th, Bennett in 8th, Shaheen in 9th, Wolf in 10th, Kloss 11th, Campana 12th, Quag in 13th, Fosby 14th, Ibobo 15th, Berenek in 16th, with Nella 17th, Suarez 18th, Adventure 19th, Titkov 20th, Catalan 21st, and Rico in 22nd position. So that's how it currently looks at the moment. Rico being over a second off of Jay Mckenzie, so once again he finds himself being the odd one out on the current leaderboard at this point in time, but hopefully he'll be able to find some improvement to a little bit later on in the session. Through the right-hander goes Campana, as he finds himself 8 tenths down off of Mckenzie in the 2nd sector, and again not looking like he's on an improvement yet again on this lap. In fact, he's way off his personal best, in fact, because you can see from the timing tower on the left hand side, he's overall 2 tenths off of Mackenzie's lap time of a 1:36.591. So probably just giving him some mileage at the moment in the Mercedes at this point in time. But I think it's in fact, I might ask you guys in the chat. I think I don't know if it's too early to ask this, basically, but what are your predictions going into the 2020 DTM season? As meantime, Beranek, in fact, has gone up into third position. So Christoph Beranek now up into third place in the Audi. So now the Czech driver finding himself the top three. There he is, as he's currently finding himself behind Max Norberg. So it's a good job he managed to improve there before he got held up by Norberg. Maybe he got a little bit of a slipstream from the Austrian just towards the end of the lap. Who knows? But back to what I was saying. What are your guys' predictions on who you believe could win the championship, or do you believe it's too early to call at this point in time? Given it's DTM, I wouldn't be surprised if you go with the latter. I presume you're probably on the same boat there, Danny, when it comes to predicting the championship. Probably too early to say.
Yeah.
Maybe Ibobo from last year, he was showing strong pace all the way. Maybe he could win it.
Some people are saying the Fosbury era might win. Jared Fosbury, yes, Beranek is off. Was that contact? Yes, it was contact. Max Norberg and Christoph Beranek have hit each other. Second and third currently in this session. And, well, the second crash of the day has happened at quite an unusual corner. Norberg has got going, but Beranek, of course, no will at all. He'll have to climb into the spare car. But it's quite rare that we see an accident at that corner. I don't think I've seen one at that corner before, to be honest. But quite a weird accident. Let's have a look then. So, Beranek was going onto the inside of Norberg, going into the left-hander. And looked like he was ahead going into there. But Norberg, well, I don't even know what he was thinking there, to be honest. I think Norberg was just being a tad bit aggressive when he didn't need to.
Yeah.
And luckily for Norberg, he hasn't got any damage, but I bet Christoph isn't going to be too happy with him and probably will be wanting to have a word with him. Maybe after the session comes to a close, or maybe run off to his team whilst he transitions over to his spare car once he gets back round the track. But yeah, quite an interesting accident there. That's that really. And disaster there, really, for Christoph Beranek. As meantime, Titkov goes up into 15th position, getting himself in front of Jared Fosbury, as Volker is trying to get a slipstream off his own teammate there, Will Neller. Volker currently in 6th position, and Neller all the way down into 18th. Not quite a collision there, keeping it clean for the moment. And I would say that if those two did actually make a collision, I think there would be stern words at the Petronas camp at Mercedes. So, especially given that these two have won a championship with Mercedes in the top class. Wouldn't have looked good at all, really. I wonder if that's why they're at the Petronas camp. As now we look at Volker now then, who makes his way through the left-hander. Taking a sip there before my throat dries up. And we now look at Bennett, who's up on his personal best in the first sector. Campana currently holding up Gabriel Rico at the moment, who's currently at the back of the field. Whilst at the same time, they've got one of the Mercedes behind them at this point in time as well. So it looks like another traffic jam is starting to form up at the moment. As meantime, Julius Anderson has got the checkered flag next to his name. So Anderson will be finishing off his session pretty soon. It doesn't mean that his session is over, it's just that when he gets the pit symbol, that will be the end of the session. So he's coming close to finishing off his runs. Currently in 7th position, 7 thousandths off of Florian Volker at this point in time. As we look at Lean Campana making his way through the section of corners, as he's got Rico right behind, trying to see if he can get maybe a bit of a toe, but it looked like from the entire lap that we saw of these two, as Rico getting very close there on the braking.
Wow.
I thought for a minute there they were actually going to touch, but Rico just able to stop that car in time. But yeah, very close there as somebody comes out of the pit lane right in front. So this has now become a 4-car train, it must be said. And I think that is the ex-David Greenwood car. Of course, Greenwood is not taking part in any tier for this season. I think he missed out on the sign-ups on either of them, and that's Victor Ibobo, in fact. Of course it's Ibobo. That's the same car. No, it wasn't. What am I thinking there? Ibobo drove a Mercedes last season.
Yeah.
The amount of times that, to be honest, the amount of times that Ibobo has switched between Mercedes and Audi in this series, it sometimes gets a bit confusing. So, I wonder when the next time it will be when he switches back to a Mercedes. We'll have to see. Probably. As But yeah, that's that really. So it's now become the Abobo train after it was briefly the Campana train, as Fosbury is now trying to get by on Rico there, hoping to not have the same consequences of what happened with Norberg, and he doesn't, because he gets ahead before the corner, and Rico decides to get behind him after that. Two other checkered flags.
And Adventure, yep. That was
Two other checkered flags have come up, Will Parrish and Daniel Adventure, along with, of course, Julius Anderson, we mentioned a little bit earlier on, but it looks like Abobo is actually breaking away from that train. It must be said, is that guy coming into the pits alongside Volker? Well, he was, but luckily Volker didn't get taken out there that time by, and it was actually Roman Quarg, who at one point, those two were actually fighting for a Ferrari seat, and at the end of the day, ended up costing Quarg. So that's why he ended up in DTM. But more checkered flags have now just fizzled out. Turwick has got the checkered flag next to his name, as has Tomet Bennett, and so has Roman Quarg, who's just come back into the pit. So his session is done with. Campana and Rico have now got checkered flags next to their names, as Fosbury's actually trying to get by on Campana into the first corner, but not able to make that one work. They now make their way towards the section of corners, and now heading towards the right-hander, as Campana continuing to hold up both Fosbury and Rico at this point in time, as they make their way through the section of corners, as Fosbury hasn't got the checkered flag next to his name, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it quite soon, given that we've only got just over 18 minutes left, as Campana makes his way through the left-hander. And so now makes his way towards corners. Mckenzie now then gets the checkered flag next to his name, as does Fakrazane. A couple of more names now then that have got the checkered flags next to their names, so they're coming in thick and fast now, all these checkered flags on the time screen. There's Fosbury there, just went around the outside of Campana there, so teaching Beranek and Norberg how it should be done, really. So a good move there from Jared Fosbury on Lin Campana, as Beranek tries to find a way through on this big Audi train that's going on, which is currently being held up by Halil Shahin. And in this train, of course, we have Beranek, who has obviously climbed back into the spare car. And then, of course, we have Will Parrish in that train. As now we look at Parrish's fellow compatriot, Lin Campana, makes his way through the section of corners. Volker has now got the checkered flag next to his name, so he'll be finishing off very, very soon. And as has Titkov now. Titkov has got the checkered flag next to his name. The Russian will be finishing his session very, very soon. Now Fosbury has got the checkered flag next to his name, as Danny has just pointed out there. So everybody who was in that train that we saw earlier, that Fosbury went around the outside of Campana at a little bit earlier on, they've now all got checkered flags next to their name. So we're coming very close to the end of the session, as both Parrish and Beranek there decide to go side by side at the corner where Beranek actually had his crash a little bit earlier on. Campana is coming into the pits this lap, so his session will be done with, and he's going to be finishing at maximum in 13th position. So that's that him, really. And Yuri, worst thing Flo ever did, ruined Quarg's career. Flo replying, Quarg ruined his career himself. And oh dear. And in fact, yeah, somebody did mention about that. Volker and Quarg did actually come together at Monza back in 2016, of course. Obviously, 2016 was a season that Flo will probably want to forget very, very quickly. Try to forget very, very quickly, given it was a winless season for Flo. And it ended up with him having that weird glitch at the exit of Turn 1, where it has that bump and it flips you over. Oddly enough, Quarg had that glitch the season before, as we were talking about the pair of them. As Catalan there, I thought for a minute, judging from how his car was handling there, I thought he was going to make that typical mistake at that right-hander, which usually involves a big crash, but he was able to save it that time, so Catalan gets away with that unscathed. But yeah. See there, look. You can just see there, look. His car started to slide a little bit there. Yeah, so Catalan very lucky he didn't have that typical crash at that corner. So, but he's down in 21st, probably still needing to get used to the DTM car. And I said he'll be hoping that he has a good season for him to try and get back into the top class in 2021, providing he signs up this time. So now. Coming around the section of corners then, we'll go Catalan, as he's coming around the double right-hander. In fact, he's actually in the last sector. Catalan still hasn't got the checkered flag next to his name, so maybe we'll be seeing that a little bit soon, as Nella is currently in the slipstream of Norberg, as they're going to go side by side coming out of turn 1 there, but Norberg is able to hold off for the moment. Norberg currently in second place. And now coming around the section of corners now then, as Nella's now losing a little bit of ground now to Norberg. Only 4 drivers now are yet to have the checkered flag next to their names, that being Max Norberg, Christoph Berenek, Hello Shahin, and Davey Suarez at this point in time. Everybody else has got the checkered flag next to their names, and they'll be finishing off the session very, very soon, and then moving on to the current layout of Hockenheim tomorrow at the same time as 7 PM GMT. As Nella now then makes his way towards the left-hander before approaching this this curved 90-degree right-hander, you could say. And 1.2 seconds down in the second sector, it seems that Norberg is definitely impeding his lap at this point in time. And meanwhile, Berenek now has got the checkered flag next to his name, so only 3 more drivers left to get that indication on the timing tower. Nella now then through the double right-hander, and now onto the last part of the track we go now then, flat through the right-hander, flat out through the section of corners he's coming up to, and then he's going to downshift and heavy brake towards this very famous last chicane that is on here at the TT circuit of Assen. Through the last chicane we go. I'm not expecting Nella to improve, but we'll see. Across the line, no improvement, and he's doing another lap. So he's not finishing off just yet. Of course, he does have checkered flag next to his name, but he's not going to be finishing off just quite yet as he makes his way through turn 3 there. Now, the section of corners we will now go now then. And Evan
Davey
just
Suarez also has the checkered
putting
flag.
fuel to the fire there, basically, of Quark's career, as we were having a little bit of a discussion earlier on. But a bit like how both Toto Wolff and Christian Horner keep adding fuel to the fire on their little boxing match that they're having. But there we are. Norberg now the only one yet to get the checkered flag next to their names. Everybody else now having the checkered flag next to their name as they make their way through the last chicane. And Titkov crosses the line, no improvement, and he's coming back into the pit. So Nick Titkov's session is done for the day. Finds himself in 15th. Maybe he could have expected a little bit better for the day, but he'll be hoping that he can do that tomorrow when he goes to a track that he is familiar with, it must be said, because he raced there. He's raced there the last 2 years, Hockenheim, when he was at Manor. So should be able to get used to it. Will we see a German race again in the fantasy era? Well, knowing Flo, he's probably listening to me right now. He's probably pointing a gun at Yuri's head, ensuring that will happen. But we will have to wait and see on that one. So that's that really. Is now through the left-hander we go. And so now we now look at Titkov, who is of course heading back into the fixing lap, and now Norberg has got the checkered flag next to his name, so everybody will be finishing off very, very soon. But there is still a few cars out there pelting around trying to get some laps in or coming back into the pits this current time. We'll see, of course. As Titkov now then makes his way through the curved left-hander before heading towards curved right-hander, well, the double right-handers, I should say. And so pretty much lifting off the throttle through that second part before you go flat for the remainder of that part, before he'll peel off to the right and go to the pit. Is Matteo Catalan down in 21st? Can he get out of that position before he's getting called into the pits? He's got just over 11 minutes to do it, so have to wait and see. Getting out of the right-hander now then, heading under the hill. And now to the right and now into the hairpin, where we've seen a few crashes, but it seems like today, unless I'm going to jinx it, so I'm going to knock on wood that nobody's going to crash at that corner. And but we will see. Excuse me, we'll see, of course. And so now. Oh dear. Flo, here he goes. I wasn't on about GP2, I was on about the fantasy era, Flo. I think one went over your head a little bit there. So that's that really. It's Catalan now then coming around the double right-hander. And now he will be heading towards flat through these next section of corners before then braking into the final chicane. We'll see if he's going to get the pit indicator on the top right when he crosses the line. And I don't think Catalan is on for an improvement, but you never know, of course. Into the final chicane goes the Italian, and we're going back onto him now then. So Catalan comes across the line, and he's still going to be doing another lap. So he's not quite finished just yet, as he makes his way through the first two turns before making his way into the third corner, which is a little bit banked. And so a little bit of camber there, it must be said. As now, I'm just trying to have a look on the mini-map how many cars you've got left on the track. It looks like there's around about 6 cars left that are on the track. Maybe 7 are push. I think it's 7, actually, that are left on the track, judging from the mini-map on the top right. So, only 7 more cars left to finish off, so to speak, as Norberg is still on a lap. Nell is still on a lap behind him. In fact, all the guys out there on the track are currently on a lap. They've not got the pit indicator yet, as we now look at the man who finished third last season in the DTM Championship, Halil Shahin, who currently lies just in the cusp of the top 10 in this session, with just under 9 minutes to go. Through the left-hander he goes, and now he will make his way through the next section of corners. Technically, Ra is in a yellow car flow, so I want to point that one out. And so out into the right-hander then goes Halil Shahin. He was 8 tenths down in the second sector. Getting a drink down me there. And just over 8 minutes to go. We look at Shahin now then. He's at the back end of the track, making his way towards the flat-out sections of the Assen circuit. Obviously best known for hosting the MotoGP race, and me and my brother had a little bit of a discussion that if there was ever a triple crown of motorsport for motorcycle racing, that is, then I think the Dutch GP, the TT Circuit Assen for MotoGP, would probably be one of those triple crowns, along with I would say the Suzuka 8-hour and maybe the Isle of Man TT. Maybe we will see, but who knows really? As we now look at Shahin now then. Now makes his way towards the right-hander. In the car in, he's still not coming into the pits. His lap I've just noticed on the top right. The indicator there as he finds himself 2 tenths down on Mckenzie in the first sector. And
we still have 7 cars on the road.
Do we? Just going to count for you. Yeah, there's still 7 cars on the track. I don't know if any of them have got a pit indicator yet, but start really as hello George, who's just joined us in the chat. As a Bobo is actually back into the pits, so he's done for the day. As Shahin now then, he's making his way towards the right-hander now then, before making his way through this little chicane, and then towards the quite lengthy chicane, you could say. It's despite the fact that there's a medium kind of a mini straight that's in between these 2 corners. Through the double right-hander we will now go, and now in towards the flat-out corners we go now then, and now in towards the final few turns on the racetrack. Flat through the left-hander, and now into the last chicane now then we'll go Halil Shahin. To the right, then the left, and then into the right-hander goes the Turkish driver as Shahin crosses the line. And he does not improve, and that's his session done with, because he's got the pit indicator, and Shahin will finish at maximum of 10th position unless somebody can get in front of him. Kloss has also finished off for the day. He's got the pit indicator next to his name, so he's going to be done. So there'll be 4 cars left on the track. As Norberg now then looking at now 2 tenths off of Mckenzie in the second sector, currently 25 thousandths off of Mckenzie in this session. I don't know if this is going to be the Austrian's final lap. So we get a good view from the outside of the TT Circuit Assen. Mainly all the trees that are in the background, so to speak. So that really is now make our way towards the section of corners. Now through the right-hander, and having a good look on the opposite side of the track there. Into the final chicane now then, we'll go Max Norberg. See what he can do around the left and then into the right, and across the line goes Max Norberg, and he does not improve, and that's his session done with. He is going to be coming back into the pits this time by. Anybody else left who needs to do a lap? I'm not 100% sure, but we now ride on board with Norberg coming back in. Nella's done. He's got the pit indicator.
And Shahin is as well.
We've already mentioned Shahin. We came across him a little bit earlier on, and in fact, is that everybody? Because I can only see 3 indicators out there. All right, yeah. So that is the session actually done with then. So there you go then. That is day 1.
He's improving.
Worst timing when he gets the pit call. But yeah, but that is day 1 of DTM preseason testing done with. So the leaderboard, you can see there is as follows: Jay Mckenzie at the top with Max Norberg in second, Christoph Beranek in third, with Matthias Terwit fourth, Will Parrish is in fifth, with Florian Volker in sixth, Julius Anderson 7th, with Rifki Fakrazane in 8th. Then it is Thomas Bennett 9th, Halo Shahin in 10th, with Adam Wolf in 11th, Bartosz Klos in 12th, Lincoln Campana 13th, Roman Quark 14th, Maxim Titkov in 15th, with Jared Fosbury in 16th, Victor Bobo 17th, Will Neller in 18th. Then it is Davey Suarez 19th, Daniel Adventure 20th, Matteo Catalan in 21st, and Gabriel Rico rounds off the leaderboard. So what did you make of that first session, first day of testing overall, Danny?
Wasn't expecting Mckenzie to be first, to be honest. Or wasn't expecting the top 3 at all. That Mckenzie, Norberg and Beranek trio. But it was an interesting session overall, so yeah, I had fun.
Indeed. Well, they're now all back into the pits, and that is going to be the session done with, as Shahin is just waiting to be wheeled back into his garage. Same will go for Norberg and, of course, Will Neller. So, yeah, that is the session done with, as the seconds tick down on the timer on the top of your screen. Neller being wheeled back into his garage. Shahin and Norberg still waiting, it seems, for a while. And we did see that Bobo was having to wait for a while, but he did eventually get wheeled back into his garage, unless these two have gone a little bit too far. I'm not 100% sure on that, as waiting to get wheeled back in. And but there you go then. So a reminder then, the full results: Mckenzie top, Norberg second, Beranek in third, Terwit fourth, Parrish fifth, Volker sixth with Anderson 7th, Fakrazane in 8th, Bennett 9th, Shahin 10th with Wolf 11th, Klos in 12th, Campana 13th, Quark 14th, Titkov 15th, Fosbury 16th, Bobo 17th, Neller 18th, Suarez 19th, Adventure 20th, Catalan in 21st, and Rico in 22nd position. So there you have it then, guys. That has been for the first day of preseason testing for DTM. A very interesting session indeed, with the 2-time top class champion Jay Mckenzie topping it by 25 thousandths of a second. But that's going to do it here at Assen. Of course, tomorrow, me and Danny won't be in the commentary box. You'll be hearing from Robert Ionescu and Dennis Graf for the final day of preseason testing for DTM. And that will be, of course, at the current layout of Hockenheim tomorrow at the same time as 7 p.m. GMT. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, I've been JW97. He's been Danny. And, well, apart from us two, you will see DTM tomorrow at 7 p.m. GMT at the current layout of Hockenheim for the final day of preseason testing before the start of the new season next weekend. But until then, take care.
Right.